morning, good afternoon. It's not quite 12. This is the day the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. For we have come to celebrate the life and works of a man sent by God to make this world a better place. To God be the glory for the great things he has done through the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. Let us stand.
Good afternoon and welcome. Welcome to today's special occasion and program. It is my honor and privilege to introduce our speaker, the Honorable Judge Marcia Morey. Judge Morey received her law degree in 1987 after attending Northwestern University Law School and the University of Illinois Law School. She began her career as an investigator with the National Collegiate Athletic Association. In 1989, Judge Morey became an assistant district attorney and specialized in juvenile law and child abuse cases. In 1997, Governor James Hunt Jr. hired her to become the executive director of the Governor's Commission on Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention, which rewrote North Carolina's laws on juvenile delinquency and created the Department of Juvenile Justice. Judge Morey is very passionate about her work with juveniles, and many owe their opportunities in life to her. Governor Hunt appointed Judge Morey to the Durham District Court bench in 1999. She has run unopposed in 3 elections and became Durham's Chief District Court Judge in January of 2011. Prior to her legal career, Judge Morey competed in 2 World Swimming Championships and was the co-captain of the 1976 U.S. Olympic swim team. Many people do not realize this or know this. Please join me in welcoming Judge Morey after the musical selection. Judge Morey will come and present our program as a major speaker. Please give a round of applause for Judge Morey.
Good afternoon. A few weeks ago, when I was told that I'd been invited to give this keynote, my friend Judge Evans was walking down the hallway, and I looked at her and I said, "Hey, Pat, guess who's giving the Martin Luther King keynote address?" And she stared at me and she said, "Do they know you're white?" And my speech goes downhill from there. And I looked and I said, "Well, yes, I am." And to continue the march to demand civil rights, it's not only a challenge for the black race, it's a journey for us all together, Latinos, Asians, whites, browns, all of us the same blood of God embodied in many races. And right now here in this church in Durham, we are proud, we are diverse, but Durham, we are not quiet, we are active. We speak out. We speak out and stand up for civil rights of our neighbors. You have no idea how honored I am to be here today and speak to you, not only to celebrate the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., but to continue and challenge us to move on in a generational movement. But for a man who had hatred in his heart and who did not believe in civil rights, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. would have celebrated his 83rd birthday on Sunday. My personal connection to Dr. King is so politically incorrect. It is a chapter out of the Help. And as embarrassed as I am to say it, my grandparents had a maid. She didn't live with them, thank goodness, but she came in during the day, and her name was Rena. And Rena, just like out of the Help, felt like family to us. And in April 1968, and in fact, I think that was the same month and year, Mayor Bell, you came to Durham. April 1968, I was 12 years old, living in Decatur, Illinois. And I remember one day bouncing into my grandparents' house, and I went back into the laundry room, and Rena was back there. And she was ironing. Something wasn't right. She had tears streaming down her face onto her uniform. And I said, "Rena, why are you crying?" And she said, "My cousin was killed yesterday." And she kept ironing. She said no more. And finally I said, "Who was your cousin?" And she finally looked up and said, "My cousin was the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr." For 20 years, that Rena, whose real name is Silverine Ferris, had worked from my grandparents, she had never breathed a word of her relationship to Dr. King, not through the Montgomery boycott, not to the march in Selma, or not to the time she went to Washington to hear him give his speech, "I Have a Dream." And although we felt Rena was part of our family, the reality was we weren't part of hers. Her struggles, her pride, were very clearly her own. But that is when the civil rights movement came alive for me. And Rena's grief would never have been imagined for me to tell this story 44 years later. But since the 1960s, we have made great strides in civil rights. And it took the courage of a person named Rosa Parks, who didn't refuse to move to the back of the bus. she refused to move further to the back of the bus. And it wasn't because she was tired. She was tired of giving in. And it took the courage of the civil rights movement and the leaders like our own Floyd McKissick, the Medgar Evers, the Martin Luther Kings, John Lewis, scores of others, to begin the marches, to begin the protests in the streets and in the courts. So someday we would have laws that would say separate is not equal. Discrimination in education and housing is unlawful. And Jim Crow laws need to be put behind us. But it's not over. The march goes on, and a long road lies ahead for all of us. Civil rights is not just about color. I think it's about the dignity of human rights. It's about voters' rights, it's about women's rights, religious rights, gay rights, handicap rights. As Dr. King said, fundamental rights, a promissory note to all people of the unalienable right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I need to talk to you about justice rights, because that's where I work. And for a judge, justice means due process. It means equal protection of our laws. And that's why for the last 23 years, every day, I have walked into that courthouse believing in those rights. But all is not right in our justice system. I started working there in 1989 and as assistant DA, and I was assigned to juvenile court. That's where the new people came. Put them in juvenile court. Nobody watches. There's no press. It's kiddie court. You can't screw up, it's kids. And once you got really good in juvenile court, you might get a promotion to traffic court. Or you might get up to district court. And when you're a really good prosecutor, you would go to superior court. Well, I spent my career in juvenile court. That may tell you something about my skills. But I tell you, I have learned the lessons of my professional career in that courtroom. I have seen that children with needs, mainly who are black and in poverty, were the ones who got the charges from law enforcement. Because the thinking was, if we just get them into the system, we can get them help and services. But to get them into the system meant to label them delinquent. And that has a profound impact. We have scores of black youth who have been caught with a blunt in their pocket, or maybe have shoplifted, or maybe they have ran away from home. And there was one occasion I had a petition brought in, and it was 3 kids throwing dice in a juvenile petition. It was the exception to the rule that any white youth was brought into juvenile court for a minor charge. And I remember one time a teacher called me from a middle school, and she said to me, "It's not right for the white boys who were caught selling Ritalin, which is a class 2 drug, to have a note given to them and have them sent home to their parents for a talk when our black youth are taken to court for a joint." Yes, equal protection of the laws have been eschewed, and the disproportionate minority representation in our juvenile justice system continued. But we have to give voice to it. We can't let it just continue. And Durham does give voice. We do get active. There is a task force on the overrepresentation of minorities, but the problem is still searching for its solution. And it's not limited to juvenile justice. It's in our adult criminal justice system, where I believe civil rights issues of the overrepresentation of minorities, our youth, and still in jeopardy. Last Tuesday, I presided over a standing room only courtroom, just like we have today. The DA called out the names of defendants who were to make their first appearances. And we had about 35 appear in front of the bench, all first appearances. I counted 2 whites, 3 Hispanics, 22 blacks. And as we do in our criminal court, we inform the defendants of the charge against them and ask what they would like to do about counsel. And for the 3 Hispanics, one caught my eye. He was tall, he was young, he was nervous. He didn't look up. He swayed, he hung his head. And of course, we needed an interpreter, and the state government has cut the number of interpreters in our courts to 1 for Durham. So we wait and we wait. And the interpreter, before she got there, I looked at the Hispanics and I said, "Un momento." Well, it sounded Italian. I don't even know if they understood what it meant, you know. And the interpreter came and she explained what I had said. "Do you understand what you were charged with?" And he said, "I did it," as she translated back to me. And I said, No, do you want an attorney? Don't tell me you did it." He said, "No, I did it." And I looked at his shuck and I said, "Sir, you have been charged with carrying a weapon on school property. That's a class 1 misdemeanor. By law, you could have 120 days in jail. Do you understand that?" Again, he said, "I did." He was charged by an officer for carrying a small folding pocket knife in his book bag at high school. His birth date, he was 16 years old. We waited as we checked his record and made sure he could qualify for the First Offenders Program, and the DA offered him a chance. And this means he would have no record if he completed 50 hours of community service, if he paid $250 to perform that community service, if he paid $180 court costs, and if he got no new charges. He said, "Okay." And I said, "Are you working?" "No." "Are you in school?" "No." He was expelled for a year for that pocket knife. I said, "Are your parents here?" "No." "Who do you live with?" "A brother." "Why?" "Mother was deported. Father, nowhere to be seen." So as a judge in justice, do I say, okay, he has no way to make that type of money to get this First Offenders Program? Was that justice? But more than that, he's 16. In any other state in the country, he would have been handled in a juvenile system, not facing the potential. If he didn't do this First Offenders, he would have a criminal record for the rest of his life. And having that criminal charge, do you think he's going to get a job? He doesn't speak English. The public records show he has a pending charge. The stakes are so high. And where, we ask, are the civil rights in that? He is a minor. Think of yourself at 16. How much control do you have over your life? As a 16-year-old, did you have the power to choose if you lived in public housing or a home? Did you have power over if there was a car in a driveway or you have to take public transportation? Did you have the ability to say there's a family at a dinner table or you were in a foster care home? Is it your fault that you're below the poverty line and gunshots ring out at night while drug dealers do their trades? You don't have the choice of the life you're born into. And if you were born a minority and in poverty through no fault of your own, the deck is stacked against you in our society. And a second civil rights issue is what I alluded to. What is a justice system that says if you have money, you can buy your way out? Almost anyone put on probation now, even for misdemeanors, they usually have to come up with about $1,500 to pay their court costs, to pay their fine, to pay the community service fee, to pay the SBI lab fee, and the $40 a month to be on probation. You have to be pretty well off to make it through probation. And it's because we do favor those who have money and those who don't. Is that just? And by the way, all the millions of dollars, tens of millions of court costs, they don't come back to the justice system. They go into the general fund. It's not to help get people out. So many days I would sit after a day of court and ask myself, what would Dr. King think if he sat in our courtrooms in 2012? The continuing overrepresentation of minorities in our juvenile justice system, our criminal system, it is daunting. And being black means you are 4 times more likely to enter the justice system if you are white. So what is our challenge? Not just in the courts, but for all of us. It has to be honest about where we fail, talk about it, and challenge us to improve it. To look and say, what are our principles? Did the great war on drugs really solve our drug problem in this country? Or did it just really resurrect the old Jim Crow mentality? We need treatment, not incarceration. The jails and the prisons should not be for the addicts and the mentally ill. It should be for the violent and serious felony offenders who threaten community safety and the rights of others. Some would say I sound like a very activist judge. No, I think it's fundamental to keep in mind due rights and equal protection. That's not activist, that's civil rights. We all have to fight to keep the challenge alive. Those of you that are here that wear a badge to show you are a city employee, a county employee, a state employee, it should be a badge of honor. Too many people are saying, less government. Government is evil. No, be proud of these badges. We do represent government, and we serve the people. And every time you put on your security badge identifying you, think of who you represent. And if it is Durham, wear it with pride, because we have a lot to be proud of. I want to tell you that we are diverse, and even our district court bench is diverse. We have 7 judges, many are here today, who I could not be more proud to be a part of. We have 3 white, 4 black. We have all kinds of different lifestyles, living conditions, backgrounds. And even though we're proud of our personal lives, when we take that bench, we apply the law as it is and use our best judgment to deliver justice. And that is diversity at its best. And we are diverse. Barbara Jordan, a civil rights leader from Texas, put it this way: life's most persistent and urgent question is, what are you doing for others? Let us today keep asking ourselves, what are we doing for others? It is our everyday challenge. What can we do for those different than us, who has a different skin color, whose lifestyle is different, whose income is different? So stand up for their rights, the dignity of all people. And every day, let us be reminded what Dr. King said: justice at its best is love, correcting everything that stands against love. Let us judge each other not by the color of our skin, by the content of our hearts. Thank you very much.
but please